We're going to do a couple quick introductions. And so first we've got Dr. Craig Browdy, who is the Chief Technical Officer at SyAqua. SyAqua is at the forefront of shrimp breeding, employing cutting-edge technologies to provide best-in-class hatchery feed, genomic selection, quantitative genetics, and breeding science. Their Vename breeding initiative started in Berkeley 22 years ago, extended its research to diverse markets worldwide, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and many more. And so Craig has a couple slides, so we'll go ahead and run those real quickly, just a little more introduction for.
Thank you. Yeah, just I was asked to give a couple of slides of introduction about SyAqua. I joined SyAqua actually only a couple of months ago. Before that, at the last F3 meeting, I was up here saying I'm the Sheldon from Ziegler Brothers Incorporated, incorporating all the interesting things that everyone's brought to the table at this meeting and testing them in shrimp and putting them into our shrimp feeds. But now I've sort of turned and moved in a different direction, and can do a little bit more in the way of impact. I think I had a late life crisis, not enough stress in my life, so I decided to try something new and different. But SyAqua was interesting because it's really where technology meets sustainability, and that's the part that was just so exciting to me when I got recruited. Like we said, it's been around for 22 years. It's gone through a lot of different genetic nucleuses and a lot of breeding, but led by Thomas Gitterly over the past 72 generations, we've been focusing on a specific genetic goal, which is to develop more or less a balanced genetic line that balances growth and survivability, giving a shrimp that really performs well in a broad range of environments. And so here you can see that SyAqua was bought a few years ago by Oceans 14 Capital. Oceans 14 is named for UN Sustainable Goal 14 and focuses on leading the growth of the blue economy. And I think SyAqua is probably one of the leading first investments in the area of aquaculture. So being led by this kind of group and with their support, we're really moving towards changing the shrimp growth farming as we know it, particularly in Asia. And so it was kind of an exciting goal to take over. So we're really in a unique position to address both genetics and nutrition with our early nutrition feeds and our expanding genetics program. We really want to enable environmental sustainability and at the same time profitability. It's kind of like the idea is that if you can get something that's more profitable to a farmer and at the same time better for the environment, then it's sort of like a ball rolling downhill. And one of the ways we do that is by trying to improve feed conversion ratios. Because if you improve conversion of feeds, if you can develop a strain of shrimp that genetically converts better, then you can actually save the farmer money. You can use cheaper feeds because they're able to convert them better. And at the same time, release less nitrogen and carbon into the environment and really improve the sustainability of shrimp farming as we know it. So that's the path we're on and the direction we're trying to go to. And one of the things we need in order to get there that I think we'll talk about a little bit on the panel is big data, is the ability to get the farmers to raise the game. You give them a better shrimp, you can give them a better feed, but if they overfeed, it doesn't help you. So you have to get the management piece in there too. So these are the kinds of things that we're working on today. And then we also have sort of the vision for tomorrow. With all of these problems that in the background, we look for solutions. We look for ways that we can move the ball forward. We look for ways that we can solve these problems, and in so doing, become relevant to the industry. So I thought I'd throw this up here. This is a paper that I and about 7 colleagues published in 2006, where we ran a pond of shrimp with a completely veg organic shrimp, fish meal and fish oil free diet. Back then, and I think this was done in like 2003, we had gotten the oil from a company called ABN from algae, and we sort of mixed it together with a bunch of plant-based feeds. And this was sort of the conclusion that we reached. At low density and outdoor ponds, we were able to raise shrimp to a harvest size of 19 grams, 93, 88% survival with very nice feed conversion ratio of 1.3 in a diet that was completely free of fish meal and fish oil. And now here we are in 2024, and this is a quote from one of the best mentors I've ever had, Dr. Tom Ziegler. The impossible just takes a little longer. So let's just keep on pushing. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. So our next panelist here, Dr. Tran, founder and CEO of ShrimpVet Lab and EcoSeafood Group, and Minh AquaMekong. He's also an assistant professor at Nong University in Ho Chi Minh City. And the ShrimpVet Lab includes a state-of-the-art shrimp disease diagnostics lab, a vertically integrated operation with a commercial hatchery, nursery, and algae lab, and a demonstration grow-out farm near Ho Chi Minh City in Vung Tau. ShrimpVet also conducts feed trials to determine the impact of feed ingredients on disease resistance. Committing to sustainability, ShrimpVet produces high-quality SPF shrimp PLs and actively pursues net zero discharge commercial production. And so Locke's also got a couple slides to share some of this work. So Locke, please.
Thank you for the introduction, sir. And today I'm going to present something that I want to pursue in order to move the shrimp industry in Vietnam forward to more sustainability and predictability. And in the last few days, we talked about F3 feed, but what about F3 shrimp? I wanted to make it real. So let's start with our journey, starting from 10 years ago. We started with a small, humble laboratory in Ho Chi Minh City, providing diagnostic services and research services to the industry. And then we start with many satellite laboratories across Vietnam to help farmers. And we built a hatchery, first ever, doing non-ablation and antibiotic-free with 1 billion PL production capacity. And then we built a demonstration farm over there. We were the first to try the F3 feed in Vietnam at commercial scale. And we built a research center for mariculture. And in 2024, we have a spin-off named EcoSeafood Group to be able to produce F3 shrimp. So we have footprint across Vietnam with diagnostic laboratory, hatchery, shrimp farms, and so on. Now with more than 100 employees from all over the world. So let's talk a bit about the businesses of the shrimp in Vietnam. So Vietnam is among the leading producers in the world. But we are facing serious problems with regards to low efficiency, high cost, and sustainability, especially pollution. So we got disease outbreak, environmental concern, global market competition. You see, in the past few years, Vietnam could not compete with other suppliers like Ecuador and India. And the reason is that the farming is operated by small household farmers with very weak supply chain. And we want to fundamentally change the business model of the industry. So I want to show you a quick look of all the diseases we may find in Asia. And every 1 or 2 years, our laboratory figure out a new one. That's all the nasty disease. And we are very focus on creating a comprehensive program to fundamentally reduce the risk of every diseases in farming. And our ambition in farming is to scale up sustainable seafood. And we have a spin-off company named EcoSeafood Group because the abbreviation is ESG, and we want to make it an ESG company. So the ambition is to raise the standard for the farm seafood with better animal welfare, like ablation-free, stress-free, antibiotic-free, high standard for food safety, completely transparent and traceability. And we aim to have first ever net zero shrimp farming in the world. And also effluent-free in water discharge. and focus on social responsibility. We have no damage to local household, open source education for farmers nearby, and create a platform for small household farmers to participate. We don't want to leave them behind. In terms of governance, we create SOP, open source education, AI-driven for our farm. And we want to produce F3 certified seafood at scale. So the secret is that we have been investing a lot in research, and this is our first research modules with hundreds of ponds for us to optimize the operation and reduce the risk of disease outbreak, etc. So we gain a lot of know-how. Every crops, we gain maybe 10% of efficiency, and with the compounding effects in the past 10 years, we could really fundamentally reduce the risk and production costs. And now we want to put it in scale. So the idea is that ShrimpVet will be like the foundation for the expansion of this business, because it provides the know-how in diagnostic, disease control, genetic, nutrition, etc. It's just like we build the basement, the foundation for the house. And when we move to designing, operating a farm, it's just like we build a house, and we also integrate with AI technology for smart farm, risk control, etc. So it's like decoration of the house. And we also have a lot of in-house innovation, and we can put into scale, to scale that up. For example, we developed some proprietary in-house innovation in AMP production, antimicrobial peptide from black soda fly, and we know exactly how to trigger that production at scale. And we also can produce beneficial bacteria at scale for application at vast scale. So this is the ideas of how to design a carbon neutral farm. So we have about 50% of the area for the farming, and another like 40 to 50% of the area for waste capture. So the waste generated from the farming will be captured by various species, including tilapia, filter feeders, bivalves, salicornia, and eventually mangroves. That is the idea. And this is the reality. So we could buy a piece of land and build that model. And you see the blue light in the right is the area for mangroves to capture the waste. And this is what happened. So we started a project about 6 months ago with a bit of capital from my wife, and we could build a farm. And it looks exactly like what we were designing. And you know, all the wind turbine just made up. But eventually we put some wind turbine to power the farm. And we just recently got a grant from the Dutch government for 100,000 euros for us to do all the documentation showing that we can achieve net zero eventually. So, and this is a little video. So this is the aerial view of the farm. So the farm is like a shrimp factory because we can produce non-stop 5 crops a year continuously. And the farm can produce about 2,000 metric tons of shrimp. And let's put into perspective, this will be able to satisfy 10% of the seafood demand for Singapore. So we just need to have like 10 more modules to be able to secure the seafood security for Singapore. And this is like a standard module for us to scale up. And we were going to put another 15 modules like this in 3 years. So I first proposed this idea to some investor that we need a few $1 million to put this in place. And you know, the idea was too crazy. And eventually I asked my wife for approval to go ahead and do it first. So we complete the first phase already. And in the next few years, we want to expand for this module, another maybe 15 more modules. And also we will help farmers to create another 70,000 metric tons of shrimp. So that means potentially we can produce 100,000 metric tons of F3 shrimp in Vietnam in the course of 5-6 years. And we run the business model and showing that the payback time for our project is 18 months only. So theoretically, we can double our production every year. So some further thoughts that we can achieve many goals, including sustainability, food safety, business opportunity, higher economic return, etc., at once. And for the market, we now have a problem in the shrimp industry, especially with the low market demand, and we have more consumer-centric approach in making farm seafood more affordable and reliable. And we can improve food security and with consistent supply and quality. And the F-free shrimp will be available. I hope that next meeting we'll have the F-free shrimp served at our dinner. So with that, I would like to thank you guys for your attention. Thank you.
And real quickly, my boss, the Dean of the Ag College, told me to remember that Locke has been recognized as one of our distinguished alumni from the University of Arizona. So, all right. Our third panelist, Kristin Veriga, is the Senior Leader of Strategic Feed Initiatives at eFishery, which is now the largest distributor of feed in Indonesia, serving over 70,000 fish and shrimp farmers in Indonesia, as well as B2B marketplace to sell feed to farmers and fish and shrimp back to B2B businesses. eFishery last year hit unicorn status as they're valued at over $1 billion. They leverage cutting-edge sensor technology to provide fisheries products as the primary source of animal protein, delivering not only nutrition but also accessibility to people around the globe. Kristin currently leads the global shrimp and tilapia value chain, where he oversees group feed strategy and rollout across the largest feed distribution in Indonesia. So can you tell us a little bit more about eFishery, please?
Yeah, first of all, hi everyone, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me to the panel. So eFishery is sort of this, it's weird. We're not a farmer and we're not a feed company either. We're actually a data company. And we built the largest network in Indonesia. So your numbers are slightly outdated. We have about 300,000 farms in our network across Indonesia, where we've been able to put in sensors, collect data over years and years and years. So we have a fairly good, robust data set. And we've been able to combine that now with external data, weather data, et cetera, to roll out a really powerful predictive analytics engine. So we can predict disease within 96% accuracy 5 days before it happens. And that allows you to make a meaningful difference in SOP. You can significantly increase survivability rates, et cetera. And we're just rolling out now. The latest tool is an AI tool. It's sort of like ChatGPT for farmers. Right? So it's a very specific AI tool. Actually, the CEO of Microsoft was down in Indonesia, I think 10 days ago or so, and it was one of the things he called out in his keynote in terms of the AI. So, you know, it's very much around how we've used the data to create more productivity out of the same level of input. Okay, that's nice. That's the first step. Yeah. But our challenge to ourselves is, well, how the hell do we get more input out of more output out of less input? And I think that's where, you know, today's conversation becomes pretty interesting. Yeah, we move around 250,000 tons of feed. So as we started up, we had the data, but actually what we're doing now is we're becoming an ecosystem binder in Indonesia to create co-ops around smallholder farmers. And the difference with eFishery is we don't go after the big guys. You know, they're the key accounts and things like that. And of course, they're interested. But actually where we truly try to make an impact is around the smallholder farmer and gluing the smallholder farmer together into a more powerful co-op that then we can leverage our data to deliver productivity. We can deliver the volume to deliver cost savings, and we have a number of risk mitigation tools, things like disease predictors, financing tools, et cetera, and we put that together into a powerful package. Yeah, and what that allows us to do is it allows us to get a significantly better trial model on new, particularly new feeds and things like this, PL, because we provide an ecosystem benefit, and then say if you want that ecosystem benefit, then you need to use this feed or you need to use this PL. Yeah. And so what we're doing now is we're in this. The second phase is about how do we get more productivity with less input. So, feed plays a key role, and we call this our transformation strategy. Yeah, and feed is obviously one of the key levers there. And how do we, right now we distribute other people's feed, and marketplace happens, Peruvian anchovy happens. And we're not in control of our own formulation. We're just distributing other people's feed. So now we're moving into how we control that. How do we land our own eFishery feed? Yeah. But we also have community reinvestment programs where we've got mangrove reforestation programs to take out 100,000 metric tons of carbon. The feed plays a key role. That takes out another 75,000 tons per year, in our calculation. So it's a vital and key role in how we're going to deliver impact. We also partner with the likes of BAP and ASC to deliver farm certification standards so that smallholder farmers were raising the bar on the farming methods that they use so that they can become more certified. And then we have a byproducts work stream, which is about taking all the shrimp shells and heads and things like this and creating bioplastics and circularity into packaging, et cetera, et cetera. But where feed becomes really interesting is, as we move into our own formulation or an exclusive formulation, I think there's a huge opportunity. Not only the opportunity that you've laid out, which is how do you get out of krill, yeah, but shrimp diets are over-formulated. There's too much protein in them. Actually, there's more than the animal needs. So it's not only about how you take marine protein out, but I think the real challenge is how do you take total protein levels down, reduce organic loads in ponds, reduce disease, improve wastewater treatment costs, reduce energy consumption. All of these become really interesting benefits in what we're chasing down.
Yeah, I think that's all a good point. And so following up on that, so what do you see in recent years, the advancements of reducing fish meal, fish oil in shrimp feeds in particular? And Craig, your experience both with Ziegler and SyAqua, what would you say has been going, and where are we going with it now?
I think the point you made about shrimp feeds being overformulated, I think particularly in Asia, I think Ecuador is starting to be a little bit less overformulated than some other places with the price pressures that they're under. But certainly, shrimp farming in Asia started with Penaeus monodon, which is a much more carnivorous species, and it's always had higher protein levels. And taking advantage of the Vaname strains that are being cultured today, and particularly some of the genetic lines that are being developed, we're able to significantly reduce, I think, that protein need and to more efficiently convert the protein. And to me, if we're talking about really making a difference globally, one thing is reducing the fish meal, but the other, and perhaps as important or more important, is reducing the feed conversion ratios and, like you say, be more efficient in terms of how you produce. So that way, a lot less waste goes into the environment that has to then be recycled through mangroves and other things like that. And that to me is truly an exciting opportunity. And I thought it was interesting that yesterday before lunch, one of the things we were challenged with was trying to avoid the law of unintended consequences. And I think it's something we really need to take to heart in a meeting like this, because, if you can remove 100% of the fish meal from the feed, the second question, well, I showed that we could do that back in 2006, but the question we really need to ask ourselves on a sort of a larger scale, similar to what you guys are doing, is should we? And if we should, how much should we remove? And should we really extend fish meal as opposed to replacing fish meal? If we can get more efficiency and actually have a better effect on what's going on in the ponds and the health of the animals and what goes out into the environment.
And so, Locke, in Vietnam, obviously a huge producer, where do you see it going here in the future, and how has it changed in the last few years on fish meal, fish oil percentage in diets?
So about 10 years ago, when I first returned to Vietnam, at that time, shrimp farming was like gambling. So people don't care about their production costs. They just need to produce and be able to produce and make money. And now with the competition globally, we have to think about efficiency. So the feed cost is also one of the key factors, but also how we run the farm, how we design the farm, how we optimize the stocking density, and so on, to put everything together to increase the efficiency in general. So farmers start to understand that, and now we need to work our best, to reduce the production cost, including improving the feed conversion and protein efficiency.
Okay. And Kristin, over in Indonesia, and I know you're growing pretty quickly in India as well, with the situation with Peruvian anchovy last year. Did you see much impact in that, in selection of proteins and looking at alternatives?
Yeah, but we weren't in control of it. We're distributing other people's feeds, and actually that sparked the need to say, how do we get control here? I mean, what it led to was a very disparate implementation of SOP and farming, different farming results. And then we couldn't predict biomass as well. So obviously each feed company reacts, in their own way. I used to work at GrowBest, so I know exactly the dark arts of what happens behind the door in a feed company. And so I can imagine what they were all doing to preserve their own cost. But that led to a very sporadic SOP and the output. So part of it is about putting, control in place so that when we go to customers, at the end of the day, you need to have an output for this. It's not just about having interesting feed. It's about having interesting feed that leads to a very well-produced animal that then can be commercialized to a retailer. Yeah. Now, when people start moving around their selection of fish meal because of the Peruvian anchovy season, it puts at risk the certification standards that you're saying the product has. How can you be really sure? So, one of the things we've done is we've built our own traceability tool to be able to do that, and we ask our feed suppliers to plug into that to be able to get back to feed and feed ingredients in our traceability tool. But we need to take that control back, which is why we're moving into our own exclusive formulation.
And so do you see much difference as you're getting more into India compared to what's going on in Indonesia in that respect?
They're fairly similar models, actually. I think there's more similarities than differences. I mean, of course, there's in India we're only commercializing fish. We haven't commercialized shrimp, and that's primarily because there's a number of enablers that we don't have in place that we need to get in place. So that work's going on in the background, but in India it's primarily a fish business, but we're talking about shrimp here, but the same principles translate across fish and shrimp. And what we've found is our model is really scalable. If you go and talk to a farmer and say, listen, if you want, I can give you more productivity, I'll give you less cost, and I'll reduce your risk. That's pretty universal, actually. That's a universal value proposition. You can go anywhere with that. It tends to resonate with smallholder farmers, which is why we've chosen India first. Yeah, but that model becomes very plug and play, and you can see as we have an ambition to create the world's most impactful aquaculture company, and that requires scale. Yeah, and obviously we won't be able to do that if we're only in Indonesia. So, yeah.
So Craig and Locke, I know you're both real involved with the breeding side, hatchery, larval feeds. Where do you see the need for alternative ingredients in those kind of specialty diets, where oftentimes we're looking for higher protein or higher fat content? Craig, why don't you go first?
Yeah, just if I could tag on to the end of the last question about what was going on with the shutdown of the anchovy fishery. One of the big success stories I see of F3 is really fish oil as opposed to fish meal, and it was the fish oil prices that just went through the roof. And the beauty is that in the last meeting we saw all of the different alternatives that are becoming reality these days. There's enough alternative DHA produced in the world right now to replace every single drop drop of fish oil that's used in aquaculture globally. And so when the price started going up, the shift to those kinds of ingredients that are already available in the marketplace was relatively seamless. And of course, the use of byproducts and stuff and so forth. So nowadays you've sort of in the, I guess you call it the dark arts in that back room, but sometimes it can be a bright art also, that you can put these things together and that these alternatives are out there. And so you have the tools. What this group and what this meeting and what these things are creating is more tools and more options that the feed companies can use when there's a situation like we had last year. Larval feeds is really a fun place to play. I called myself last time at this meeting as Sheldon, and I picked some of these really cool things that are coming out, because like you said, there's actually properties of some of these alternative ingredients, particularly fermented ingredients in shrimp, that really have a benefit on the animal's immune system and the animal's ability to be resilient and strong. And that's really important in larval feeds. And in larval feeds, you can afford to, and because the volumes are small, you're able to take some of these new novel ingredients that aren't really produced even at scale yet and show that they're able to be used. And that helps the company that's developing these ingredients to show that they actually have a commercial application, even in a small scale. So larval feeds are a very interesting laboratory to play with.
Yeah. Yeah. Locke?
Yeah. Yeah. So from ShrimpVet, we have been testing for many novel ingredients, and we found a lot of interesting, cool stuff, especially with regards to the immune system of the shrimp. And I feel like when we have more and more ingredients, it's like we have more and more ingredients in our kitchen for us to formulate different meals. And we have more options in case of, let's say, supply chain disruption, etc. So that will bring us more security for the feed business. And at the same time, we can optimize and combine different ingredients together, especially with regards to some fermented ingredients, to improve the shrimp health in general. And through the feed, we can really increase the resilience for the shrimp. And we have less problem with diseases.
So, I mean, at eFishery, we're in test with our formula. We've got it's approaching zero fish meal. It's not quite zero fish meal, but we lean heavily into precision fermentation on certain ingredients. And what we've been able to show right now is we have a prototype formula at zero, but we haven't commercialized it yet. That's in test, and we can get 3% better FCR with actually 10% less protein, total protein level, and zero fish meal, with seaweed fermentations and soybean fermentations, things like this. So that's very much where we're leaning to. And the benefit that we have there on the farming side is, one, you get productivity, 3% better FCR, but the cost side is the cost to replace is lower, actually. So we're able to deliver a fairly attractive cost signature to the product as well.
Yeah. So another expensive thing that we use in hatcheries are polychaetes and squid and clams. Do you see some of these alternative ingredients filling in the gap? Because we're trying to use less and less of that for biosecurity and all these issues. Are some of these alternatives, kind of like what you were saying, Craig and Locke both, of these are good places to bring some of these new ingredients into the mix if we can replace some of those broodstock supplemental feeds?
Yeah, for me, when I was developing the broodstock feeds that Ziegler currently has on the market and that I think are really market-leading feeds, I was focusing in on a lot of the things that were discussed yesterday in terms of attractability. If you can't get them to eat the broodstock feed, then they're not going to be able to get the goodies that you need into the female so that they can do the incredible things they do in terms of producing 40% of their biomass in eggs every 3 or 4 days. But they have to be able to eat it, and you have to get them to eat it in preference to things like fresh squid, which they really love. And so, all of these things that we were talking about yesterday, and attractants is a perfect example of, how we're making those feeds better.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, I know, Locke, you're testing a lot of these things there in your lab, so it's great to know that's happening.
Yeah, and I agree that broodstock feed is one of the main sources of infection for the entire chain. So we need to do something about it.
Yeah. Okay, good. What do you see as major challenges and opportunities for these alternative ingredients as we continue going forward? Kristin?
There's no shortage of cool ingredients, actually. We've seen heaps here. There's many more. Actually, the people we're working with are not in the room, so there's many around. And you have to form your coalition of the willing, right? And, you know, that's what I found here is you can't change the world by yourself. Or you can, but you get exhausted, and it takes a long time. So you've really got to get your coalition of the willing, the people who believe in the same dream. And that needs to go all the way through to the retailer, because it's, you know, you can go and create whatever you want from, you know, let's say, Locke, you've got a great program to get to carbon, you know, neutral, fantastic, right? But if there's no outcome, if there's no retailer that wants that, or there's no one who wants to pay for that, right, then we're doing a lot of work for not a lot of benefit. Because at the end of the day, what do we want to do? And I think everyone's here because we want to create impact, right? Impact in real terms is about getting more aquaculture products consumed on world markets. Yeah, and yes, with lower impact signatures and you know, better carbon signatures, et cetera, but you have to have that coalition of the willing. You know, people who can pull together and provide the right level of testing, get the data together. You know, whether you do it at ShrimpVet or, you know, you can come to eFishery. I've got 300,000 ponds that I can throw things in. I can't throw them in each pond, but let's say I've got a fairly wide network of actual farm ponds that we can test in. You know, and then we at eFishery, we've been very, very intentional about bringing in retailers into that conversation early as well, to make sure that when we pull this together, actually there's an output for it, you know, and a need for it. So I think that's the number one challenge. The number two is, how do we right-size the formulation? You know, everything is over-formulated. So the challenge is not just the removal of the marine, it's what I was referring to earlier. It's like, well, how do you reduce overall protein to reduce water, treatment costs, organic loads in ponds, disease, et cetera, and I think overall that leads to better productivity, better cost signatures for everyone.
Okay, Craig, what would you add to that?
Boy, that was really well said. Thank you. I think that creating coalitions of the willing, I got to remember that term. It's a great, great idea. And you know, I'm just starting in SyAqua, and I think there's great opportunities to partner. And I say to, you know, the feed companies out there and the big data companies and so forth, and you know, we're willing to try to help produce the seed, and we're willing to help try and do our part. Let's come together and let's show examples, really good examples, like the one that Locke is building, so that we can then bring the rest of the world with us. I think you said it really, really well. But the key is not only the retailers, I would take it to the consumer. That's why I'm so excited about this TV show. I hope it comes out really nice, because we got to reach everybody. We got to talk to the consumers. And that's the part that sometimes we forget. There has to be a pull. We can push as hard as we can and as hard as we want. But until there's a pull, it makes it very, very difficult. And I think we'll get there.
So, Locke?
Okay, very interesting. I want to add on. So first of all, I think we need to be realistic before we talk about sustainability. And that is why ShrimpVet has been doing a lot of testing, research, optimization in order to bring down the cost. So we have room for some sustainability stuff. And it's been a very challenging path for us to do, like nanoablation, antibiotic-free, and now we talk about net zero. And you know, creating a circular economy does not increase the cost in general, but in fact, it will increase the revenue from some other products like fish and bivalves and so on, and so on. So eventually, it helps us to bring down the cost, not increasing the cost. And I think the second issue we need to solve is how to raise the public awareness. And I think the aquaculture people must step up and take some risk and producing better product, but like ShrimpVet, we don't necessarily sell shrimp at premium price for the time being, because we have some room for those sustainability stuff, so we can help the retailer to create good stories, how we produce shrimp, and we offer better choices for the consumer, so they can pick the shrimp that can help save the world.
Thank you. And thank you, all panelists. Round of applause for our panelists, and much appreciated.